What is going on, everybody? In today's video, we'll be breaking down some late round quarterbacks that I think you should be targeting currently in 2024 fantasy football drafts, as well as 2024 fantasy football mock drafts. Overall, these guys all have tremendous values where they are currently being drafted, and I believe that you don't necessarily always have to have a top five fantasy quarterback, or you don't have to target a top five fantasy quarterback and spend an early draft pick on them. I think if you can get a guy in the top 10 and spend a later draft selection on them, that comes with a much better value for your fantasy football team. So if you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long: free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way in. Other than that, if you guys have any fantasy football questions, drop them down below. I'll get back to you when I can. Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video. All right, I'm going to kind of cheat with the first overall selection here, and that's going to be three quarterbacks because I just love this range, okay? Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love. When we look at the sleeper app, which that's the ADP that I used for today's video, you got Prescott at 75.3, Kyler at 83.2, and Jordan Love at 86.3. And over on Underdog, you've got a very similar ADP range for these guys. Kyler Murray at 77.8, Dak Prescott at 95.6, Jordan Love at 97.6. So they're a little bit further back. And you also got Joe Burrow in between them at 90.5. But overall, in some mock drafts that I've seen currently, you can get one of these quarterbacks between the 7th and 10th round of fantasy football mock drafts. And I think that's fantastic. I think these are three offenses that are going to be good this year. Three quarterbacks who are going to be very consistent for fantasy football. I like Kyler Murray because you get that added rushing upside out of Kyler, who, when you look back at his stats last year and you break down how many games he actually played in total, just 8 games for Kyler Murray. And he was on pace for over 500 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, could have easily gone over 3,500 passing yards, and at least 25 touchdowns in terms of passing touchdowns. And I just think Kyler Murray now in a fully healthy season, Marvin Harrison Jr. there, you got Trey McBride, good run game. Kyler Murray, I think a lot of people are sold on at this point in the offseason. So love Kyler here. I love Dak. I think Dak is getting way too undervalued at this point. He was a quarterback 3 last year in fantasy football. And at the end of the day, this offense isn't any different on paper in comparison to what we had last year for the Dallas Cowboys. So maybe a tougher schedule for the Cowboys this year, but overall, I think Dak is still going to be fine, especially with his current contract situation. Everything going on. Is he going to be back with the Cowboys, not back with the Cowboys? He's still got a lot to prove to other NFL teams, or at least wants to come off of the best season he possibly can if he does truly move on to another team 2025. Then we got Jordan Love, a ton of young offensive playmakers on that Packers offense. Jordan Love finished as the quarterback 5 in fantasy football last year. So when you look at Prescott, when you look at Love, even if these guys regress, they can still easily finish as top 10 fantasy quarterbacks than Kyler. Not a full season last year, but Kyler is going to be in a much better place in terms of fantasy scoring this coming season. So I love this range. If you're kind of waiting at the quarterback position, whether you are drafting in a best ball tournament or if you're drafting for your upcoming redraft league, I think this tier of quarterback is a great tier to target moving into 2024. All right, next up on the list, we've got Brock Purdy coming in at an ADP of 100.2 on the sleeper app. And then we move over to Underdog. He has an ADP of 110.9. You guys know, if you follow the channel, at least since last year, that I'm a big Brock Purdy truther. And I was very high on Brock Purdy going into last year when he finished as the QB6 in fantasy football. And really the only thing we can look at this point in time, like what's going to be different about this offense going into next year, is the fact that maybe Brandon Ayuk isn't on this team. Like if you're worried about that situation, but I think Ayuk's going to be back. So I don't really see why Brock Purdy situation in terms of potential fantasy points scored would change from last year into this coming year. Over 4,200 passing yards last year, 31 passing touchdowns, had 2 rushing touchdowns, which really came from him just kind of stumbling into the end zone. He's not really a quarterback that comes with rushing upside, but still, when you break things down last year, you look at Brock Purdy in total, in terms of games where he had under 20 fantasy points, is only sitting at 6 total games. So Brock Purdy, extremely consistent, great offensive system, plenty of playmakers around him. You can call him a system quarterback if you want. I don't think Brock Purdy is a system quarterback. You look at some of the throws he makes, you look at some of the ways he's able to really elevate this Shanahan system. Brock Purdy is a great quarterback at the end of the day. But most importantly, once again, similar to, Prescott and Jordan Love, who we just talked about, even if Purdy regresses a little bit this year, still easily finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. And sometimes Purdy's going between like the 10th, 11th round and PPR mock drafts right now, just going really, really late. And Underdog, I think he's a really good player to target if you're stacking with Deebo Samuel and or Brandon Ayuk and or Kittle or CMC, whoever you like, right? And, we also got Ricky Pearsall in this offense as long as he's actually healthy to start the year. Still got some other names like Jawan Jennings coming back to this team. So Purdy in a great spot, great system, great playmakers, great ADP. Love him late in drafts right now. All right, next up on the list, we have Tua Time coming in at an ADP of 107.3 on the Sleeper app, then at an ADP of 124.6 on Underdog. This is another player, if you're going Tyreek Hill early, okay, you're going Jalen Waddle early, one or the other, right? This is a great player if you're trying to build a stack to target. That's what I talked about in yesterday's video. But overall, I think that Tua is just being undervalued where you can get him currently in drafts. You can get him pretty close to where you're getting Brock Purdy. So once again, sometimes Tua slides and he's sitting there in the 11th round, and you now have a top 10 quarterback from last season who led the league in passing yards and still had 29 passing touchdowns. So once again, this Dolphins offense, kind of similar to the Niners that we just talked about, one of the highest scoring offenses in the league last year. You still got Hill, still got Waddle, got Jonnu Smith at tight end, and you still have two very good running backs in Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert on this offense. So really no reason to believe that this offense is going to change in any way negatively compared to last year, as long as everyone stays healthy. You've also got Odell Beckham added to this offense. Verdict's out if that's going to matter or not. He's not even healthy at the time I'm recording this, but maybe he's a good locker room guy. I don't know. At the end of the day, right, Tua, where he's going in drafts, this is almost identical to what we just talked about with Brock Purdy, okay? Tua just being undervalued. Even if he regresses, can still easily finish in the top 12 range at the quarterback position. He was, like I said, QB9 last year, so I'm not worried about Tua. And once again, it's just like, you're not taking a lot of risk in terms of draft capital where you're drafting a player like Brock Purdy or Tua. So good offense, not a bad quarterback, still a top 10 quarterback last year, and just being slept on in terms of his ADP. Love Tua, where he's going currently in drafts. All right, next up on the list, I've got Jaden Daniels going at an ADP of 113.3 on Sleeper and an ADP of 101.8 on Underdog. So the reason I like Jaden Daniels, right? The reason why he is the rookie quarterback that I'm targeting the most in drafts is because, well, he brings a lot of rushing upside to the table, right? That's the easy answer, okay? Had over 1,100 rushing yards last year, had 10 rushing touchdowns. But look at the stats on the screen. He still threw for over 3,800 passing yards, 40 passing touchdowns, was a Heisman Trophy winner. He can do it both ways. He can throw the ball down the field, and he can elevate the game with his legs. Now he goes into a Cliff Kingsbury offense. We saw some early years for Kyler Murray where this style of quarterback really worked well in this specific type of offense. I do think it's important that they protect Jaden Daniels because look at some of the hits he took in college. He looks at some of the hits that Kyler Murray took early in his career. That can concern you. I think that's fair. But at the end of the day, even if we have a Anthony Richardson-like situation, I'm going to plan for it, right? Because I think if you draft Jaden Daniels, you're now in a position where you can still draft a second quarterback like Justin Herbert, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, and Jared Goff, or some of the guys like Tua and Brock Purdy, who we just talked about. Come out of your draft with two quarterbacks, and then you don't have to worry about anything, right? Because you have the upside of Jaden Daniels, a rookie quarterback, someone who can go to the bench, someone who can, if he is injured, stay on IR, stay on your bench, whatever you need to do, and then still have a veteran pocket passer step in as well and still be a viable option in terms of fantasy. So if Jaden Daniels stays healthy, I think all the upside in the world's there. I like Terry McLaurin. I like Jahan Dotson to have a bounce back year. Ben Sennett, I think, is another good rookie option at tight end for this team. I think Eckler and Brian Robinson are going to come together for a good backfield as well. Like I said, Cliff Kingsbury offense, I think everything's here. Jaden Daniels could honestly be in line to win Rookie of the Year if Caleb Williams does not have enough success, but that's another story. He's got a lot of weapons around him as well. So Jaden Daniels, based on his ADP, upside is there. You can take a second quarterback if you're worried about the injury risk. Love him where he's currently going in drafts. All right, last but not least, let's talk about Matthew Stafford. There are a couple quarterbacks I considered here. I do like Kirk Cousins where he's going. I do like Baker Mayfield, and I've just found myself talking about Matthew Stafford quite a bit lately. His ADP is 139.2 on Sleeper, and then 148.5 on Underdog. Listen, Matthew Stafford had a great season last year when he really break things down. I know there was a point or two where it felt like it was a little bit slow. The ceiling wasn't too elevated, but once that Rams offense really got going last year between weeks 12 and week 17, he only gave you under 18 fantasy points one time. He had a ceiling of 24.3 fantasy points in that stretch. Was still a top 15 quarterback in fantasy football last year. And I think he can easily finish as a top 15 quarterback again this season. Puka Nacua is there. Cooper Kupp is there. Two great running backs in Kyron Williams and rookie Blake Corum. And then we've got enough options behind Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua because you guys know that my guy Demarcus Robinson is on this roster as well. But even then, I mean, you've got some buzz around Jordan Whittingham at wide receiver. You still got Tutu Atwell, who go back to the first couple games of the year last year. Tutu Atwell was actually a viable option. But point is, this is a Sean McVay offense, right? This is a proven offense. All these guys stay healthy. This can still be one of the best offenses in the year. I think the defense is going to struggle this year. They struggled last year in the secondary, and now Aaron Donald is gone. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter for fantasy. If this team's playing from behind, they're going to throw the football more. That's what Matthew Stafford does best. End of the day, love me a Sean McVay offense. All these guys stay healthy. I truly believe that the Rams offense can be one of the best offenses in the league this year and one of the best offenses in terms of fantasy points overall. So Stafford, where he's going in drafts, and he is going late. This is a guy sometimes in single quarterback redraft mocks that you can see go in the 12th, 13th, 14th, every now and then past that round. So Stafford is even an underdog. If you're getting Puka early, getting Kupp in the third round, whatever it is, he's also a great option in terms of stacking. At the end of the day, I just think he's going to have a good season as long as everyone's healthy, as long as he's healthy. Love him where he's going currently in drafts. That'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content, this is all we do here all year long. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. But more importantly, if you guys have any fantasy football questions, drop them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Be sure to join our free Discord. That link's down below. It'll get you guys notified of when I'm hopping into Underdog drafts as well as when I am running our subscriber PPR mock drafts. This is the time of year that you guys want to get in on those two things, get you the most prepared for the upcoming fantasy season. Be sure to look out for those live streams. We'd love to have you guys join those. But with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.